British Strongman Coaching. Today we have Mollie as a guest. And we're going to talk about Becky Noon and how she's gone from being a rugby player, well, she is still a rugby player, and combine that with strongwoman training, and how she's gone to be essentially compete at a pro strongwoman show in 2022. So a little bit of an icebreaker for Mollie. So Mollie's absolutely brilliant athlete in her own way. She's the goal this year for you as an athlete was you won the goal was to win like a kind of title, wasn't it? Like you'd won some like local comps and stuff and done really well. But this year the goal for you as an athlete was to win kind of a regional title or whatever. And you've smashed that. So first of all, you did the North England Strongest Woman under 64. Absolutely brilliant. And then more recently, you've won the Arnold's European Championships under 75 kilos. So you've smashed it as an athlete. But more importantly, what I want to talk about today is like you as a coach. So it's a little bit of an icebreaker and to get you talking. So what would be an ideal strong woman comp for you personally? If you could just pick 5 events, what would they be?
18-inch deadlift, dumbbell, overhead medley, yoke, stone to shoulder, I'd say.
Right, so what if you can't have 2 overheads? And would it be max dumbbell or would it be dumbbell?
Dumbbell for reps.
Dumbbell for reps.
If you can't have 2 overhead events, squat.
Squat, yeah, fair play.
Squat for reps.
Yeah, so similar to mine would be maybe silver dollar deadlift. You're assuming that we're going to have a deadlift. Yoke, definitely, any kind of yoke. Farmers. Yeah, any kind of farmers, really. Stone run, preferably light, because I'm fast, but not very strong. But and yeah, maybe some kind of overhead like max axle or max dumbbell. Dumbbell, yeah, max dumbbell. Right. Anyway, so let's move on to the topic. So Becky Noon this year in 2022, she's a rugby player, and she's gone to compete at a Strongwoman Pro show at the Arnold's recently. So how did she do this? First of all, what are you to explain, because you know a lot better than me, what's the pathway that's available for women in Strongwoman? What's the route?
So the route that Becky's followed, which is the untested pathway for women, is Ant Brown's 100 CA pathway. So you've got your regional qualifiers. So Becky did the Midlands, I did the North. So there's the North, Mid, South regional qualifiers. And then the top 4 from that go to England Strongest Woman. That was at the Fit Expo.
So to be clear, anyone can enter the
regionals. Yeah. Yeah, anyone can enter that, and it's like accessible. It's pretty light-ish weights, really. For it's made to be accessible. So yeah, anyone can enter, and it's not that heavy. And then yeah, top 4 go to England at the Fit Expo. That was in end of June, I think, this year. Top 3 from England then go to Brits, and that was at Doncaster Dome in September. And then the top...
Keep going.
6, I think. The top 6 from Brits got the opportunity to go to the Arnold women's pro show at the Arnold, which was amazing this year, like really good experience. Nice.
So about the Arnold's Pro show, like it's just so much progress to the sport, isn't it?
Yeah,
like,
amazing. It was
like what were the details of the payments and stuff? Like,
I think everyone got paid. So it's the top 6 from Brits. So everyone that competed, all the women got some sort of payment for that. So yeah, really good progress, and it was over a few days. So did they have 2 events and then 3 events? So it was split over a few days anyway. So it was a good show on the main stage for people to watch. And
so I went to the show, and it was just like absolutely amazing. It was just like a phenomenal demonstration of how much the sport's progressed. Like we laugh about it quite a bit because we started 6 years ago or something, and you're paying you're happily paying £30 to £50 entry fee to essentially run around a car park on odd piece of equipment and stuff, because we just love it. But to see that, like, obviously the men's side's progressed loads, weight classes and stuff, but seeing the women's side progress so much with that, and providing with people with the opportunity. I know some people are like, oh, how much did they earn compared to whatever? But I think that's irrelevant. I think the fact that, like, women have the opportunity to get some monetary something back.
Yeah.
For it just shows it doesn't matter to me whether it's £1 or whether it's £1,000.
And I think that it's on the main stage as well. Like,
just amazing.
Not just the prize money, is that it's on the main stage, same as like the open weight men. You know, like the men that everyone has heard of, and people there going to watch them can then also watch the women, and it's kind of a big show really. So I think that was a brilliant opportunity through the pathway really, and hopefully people will have been able to see it and sort of be inspired to, you know, start with the regionals next year and go through that pathway.
What would you say about women who maybe weren't quite strong enough yet to do the qualifier? I know it's like, it's easy for you to look at the qualifiers and think, oh, they're relatively light, which they are for you from an athlete's perspective. But speaking from a coaching perspective, you know, like if you've got somebody who you're coaching who's like really into it, but they're not quite at the weights yet, or they might be able to do 2 of the events out of the 5, what would be a good route for them, or what would you encourage them to do? So I'm just showing in the background some of the photos from the Arnold.
I mean, if you're desperate to compete, there's plenty of novice beginners comps around. Like Chaos are doing loads of competitions, so there's plenty of novice comps around. There's the drug tested pathways as well. I think they're a little bit lighter, but yeah, the regional qualifiers are, you know, they're light, and I think it's good to just, even if it's heavy for you, go in and experience it. But yeah, there is the drug tested pathways as well, but I think the weights are pretty similar, to be honest, now.
Yeah, cool. So I'd say another thing for people to do if they're serious about it, but they're not necessarily confident enough to do the qualifying pathway or whatever. And this might seem a bit counterintuitive, really, but there's the online qualifier for like official Strongman Games Worlds. And what I like about that personally as a Strongman fan, like, I don't mind paying the monthly official Strongman membership to just support those sports, I suppose. So with that you can enter all the online qualifiers. So for me, just by default, like I'll usually get stuck in and just put an entry up. And just as an opportunity to pitch myself, not even if I'm not going to qualify or whatever. Like last year, I did the England's Open one, and just put the online qualifier. And I wasn't trying to qualify. I just wanted to see my names against the other people. So I feel that's another kind of way. If you say you're strong enough to have a go at the qualifying pathway, but maybe not confident enough, like, I think the online qualifier is a good objective measure of how you're doing, and you can get your names up against some of the people that you've heard of and follow on social media, and it can be a good way of getting in there. So let's talk about Becky then. So what she managed this year? So first of all, she inquired with us, and then I thought you and her would be a perfect match for coaching. And I think the goal was, I think she was maybe about 6 to 8 weeks out from England, was she, or something like that? Was it a couple of months before England's, roughly?
Yeah, it could have. Yeah, I think she'd won her regional qualifier. I think she'd already qualified. And she was sort of getting ready for England. What was the question?
So tell us about how Becky's progressed through the route. How did she do at England's? Then she qualified to Brits, and then can you remember how she got on at the Arnolds?
Mm-hmm. So England's to start with. So I think she finished 4th at England's. Had a brilliant comp. Overhead, you can see there, like, had come on loads. So Becky was already fairly proficient in like basics of weightlifting, so she could do a clean and jerk. So you can see there she's doing a split jerk. So it was just transferring that. It was max axle at England's, so it was just transferring the basics of weightlifting that she already had onto the getting the belt clean, really proficient, and then using a split jerk to get that max axle event. So she did great with that. Moving events are Becky's strongest. You can see their farmers, which she actually won, which was amazing, 80 kilos each hand. So Becky competes in the 73 weight class and against some amazing athletes at England's. Obviously, with it being a new class, some of the girls have come down from the 82s. And you know, they were really good national level athletes as 82s. So to take an event win with the farmers was incredible.
Yeah, I remember that as like a fan from the outside thinking, oh, like it was great to see how she was going to respond being against some of these people that she'd heard of. And very, very easy to put people on a pedestal, isn't it? When you've heard them and follow them on social media and stuff. So credit to Becky. Like whenever I've spoken to her, like her attitude is just absolutely amazing for getting stuck in. Yeah. And she sees these people who other people may see it on a pedestal, but she sees them as inspiration, doesn't she?
Yeah, definitely. And yeah,
taking scouts at England was just amazing.
Amazing. Dumbbell, 40 dumbbell, which was her current 1 rep max. So I think she got a rep. Just scroll down. I think she definitely got 1 rep. Can't remember whether she got a double, but yeah, really good for her. You know, to get an equal PB at a comp on a different shaped dumbbell, incredible. So it's great, and has come on loads with the dumbbell. Deadlift.
So I was particularly impressed with this actually, because when she started, what was her PB? Was it 190 or 185 for one, or 180? It was like 180, 190, I think. I can't remember.
I mean, she was new to a suit, so this was suited deadlift, so difficult to sort of compare. But to be honest, Becky said to me in the prep for this, I want to get 8 at the one. I want 8 at the 170, and I was a bit like, thought it was a bit unrealistic, to be honest. Because I think at this point a 1 rep max was about 185 or something. But yeah.
So if you project that up, it's like it's great that she's aiming high, but realistically, like most people aren't going to be able to do that. But credit to her for
she smashed out 7, which 3rd place, so like up there with the strongest deadlifters in the category. So that was incredible. And as I say, new to a suit, so a skill that she's sort of acquired in this year, really. And then stones, again went really well. She'd been struggling with the 100 stone in training, just really new to it. Her technique with stones has come on so much, and it's building all the time. But
this was something that I was massively impressed with, because obviously when you're coaching people, obviously you're coaching online, and sometimes I'll have a look. I'm really interested to see what she's doing on social media, but she's been down for some sessions in person that I've been like amazed in what from her, amazed with her as an athlete developing, but amazing with your coaching, because I'm not quite sure what you do with all the intricacies, but all I see is significant progress and results. And this was a big thing for me. And we did a little video that I'll attach to this. I'll put the link in the description of what we changed on a. She was, I remember loading it up and the stone was slipping, wasn't it? And then you've changed the technique drastically on that. So now she's loading up high, and it just looks absolutely fantastic. So
so smash that. And then 4th overall. And then I think a spot rolled down, because it was supposed to be top 3 to Brits, but obviously with the 73 category being fairly new, and some girls had already got through from last year or something. So a spot rolled down anyway for an amazing opportunity for Brits.
So what would be a top 3 improvements then? So I'll see if I can find some videos from Brits and maybe the Arnold. You talk about, like, if you just had to pick 3 kind of events that you feel like it's really clicked and she's really developed and she's really got it, like what would those be?
I think dumbbell. I think sort of globally, dumbbell's fairly. People find it difficult. It's awkward. It's, as I say, Becky was pretty proficient in her overhead lifting. You know, she's a coach herself. She wasn't a newbie to strength sports by any means, but dumbbell's something that, you know, you don't do really unless you're competing in Strongwoman. So that was something that she wasn't confident with. She'd not really done it before, so pretty new to her. So to get very quickly up to 40 and then be able to replicate it in a competition, I think was amazing progress. And it, you know, she had some sessions where she was like, you know, it's really not clicking, it's missing it loads and like struggling with it. And then some sessions where it was starting to click. And
for me, it really shows, like, it's a real good test of somebody that, you know, like you look at the stuff like the yoke, for instance, and she is legit world class, yeah. But she's like, you could argue, some people could argue that she's taken to it well, and like everything's gone swimmingly. She hasn't got injuries and stuff like that. That's
why I've sort of said dumbbell first, because it's not come easily. I don't think it's really a thing that comes easily to anyone. It's not a natural way to press. So I think a lot of people do find it
that's difficult. The thing, it's not intuitive, the dumbbell. You have to learn the logic and what you're trying to do with it, and that's why we go into so much depth with the stuff and get such great results with people, showing them what to look for.
And even with someone who's a decent overhead lifter already, it's still not that natural, is it? So no. I think, credit to Becky. You know, we've been training dumbbell, not heavy, but training it, you know, three times a week. Nice light skill acquisition, and she's stuck with it and got frustrated, but it got a lot better. And to hit that 40, sorry, England's was the reward for her, because she deserved that. It was a lot of graft went into that dumbbell. So next one, I would say, like you say, yoke. She's just incredible at that.
So give people an idea of the kind of numbers that she's hitting on yoke. Because obviously the thing that I've noticed, and again from seeing her in the gym, because she came, and I think she just like ran past me on the AstroTurf one day and looked, and it was like 200 kilos. So I'm thinking, what is going on?
Yeah.
But the thing from seeing some videos, I'd seen that she was always seen quite strong. But what you must have done with her, I assume, has been given her, like, say, time targets and stuff, because you can see that you see a lot of people who get strong with a weight, but then they miss out on the points because they finish it, they finish it strong and they feel stable. It felt really good, felt really strong, but you can tell they're not chasing the objective of nailing the time. Whereas you can see with Becca, she is doing that. Is that something that you work on with training people in moving events and stuff?
Yeah. So usually with moving events, I'll do a lighter, providing the time miles and the recovering all right, a lighter day and a heavier day with the moving events, which I think is what Becky did with her yoke. So I mean, it was heavy. This was Brits. So it was 230 for 15 meters. I can't remember whether it was a drop and turn, wasn't it? I think.
So just look. Just look at this in terms of like guys that are. Yeah, it's absolutely ridiculous. Like guy, like how she's moving in with that. I know she's made a mistake, but she hasn't done many comps. But in terms of like how she's actually moving with that, that's like a legit like novice men's comp weight.
Yeah,
and you don't see men moving as well as that.
Incredible. And I think her yoke at the Arnold was actually even better. It was heavier, and she didn't have as many drops with it.
So let's compare. So this is 230 and she won. And like I say, she looked. I don't know if is the video up. Maybe it will be.
So so she do there it is, a training day with pretty light speed. 250. This from the
second place. Oh, this is second place to Chloe is amazing.
And she wasn't.
So that looks incredible improvement from even the 230 at Brits where she came first. Looks so stable and strong.
Yeah, and she was confident going into this because like she'd proved at Brits how good she is at yoke. So a light day where we'd practice footwork and the quick turns. You saw on the Brits video how like a turn was really good. We'd do speed, footwork, turns, getting her to time each run, trying to beat last week's times at at lightish weights, and then a heavier day where she'd do maybe just one way, maybe like just a 15-meter run with some heavier weights, so making sure she's recovering okay from it, but still getting that heavier stimulus, and obviously managing recovery, seeing if that's okay recovery wise. But she'd been fine recovering, and same with the farmers as well. She's absolutely incredible at. So same with farmers, we do a lot.
So that'd be your third one, would it? The farmers.
Yeah, and it, like, obviously you said the things she's improved most in. It's her first season, so that everything. She's it's the first time she's put on a suit. It's the first time she's done moving.
Well, a thing that I've been impressed with from the outside is stuff like when she started, she's put in some decent numbers overhead, like whatever 70-ish or whatever, and you can't as a lady putting your body weight overhead or whatever, you can, like, there's not many people who can do that by chance. Like, she's obviously well trained and she's a really good coach in her own right, getting great results with her clients and stuff. So to actually get somebody to significantly improve when they're already pretty good at something, and for you to objectively look at somebody who, like, she knows the basics of weightlifting, and for me just to see snapshots of it, but seeing her significantly improve all the time, I find that particularly impressive. Cool. So let's talk about programming principles for busy women. Can you improve by keeping it simple? So I want you to, like, say, imagine that people listening to this are that a lot of people, like, say for me, the barrier of me going with a coach or whatever would be, I like to keep things really, really simple. And like, if you said to me, going, right, you're doing your 2.5 hour, 3 hour session, like, I would generally do a lot better if I had 2 or 3 things to focus on to do really, really well than 10 or 12 things to focus on. And when a lot of people are taking like a shot in the dark in terms of, like, say, going with a new coach or programming and stuff, like, it can be, from a coach's perspective, like I used to do when I started training people, 9 years ago or something, like a thing that I would try and cram in the session. I look back and try and cram in the session like 10, 12 exercises, and I'd be rushing from one exercise to the other. And I look back now and I realize that the client would be come away from the session very often baffled and wouldn't know what to focus on, and like they may have enjoyed it, felt good, but what have they actually improved from? Whereas, so as I've personally got better at coaching, I've got confident to make things simple, and it's something that seems for me, maybe because obviously I've helped you with it a little bit, but what I find impressive from the start with you and your coaching is how simple you're confident to keep things. Yeah. So can you tell us a little bit more about that, and tell us about, just talk about it.
Yeah. So I think I find it important to keep a goal in mind. So obviously with like people that are competing in Strongman, Strongwoman in the competition season, you might have a competition coming up. So you might have your 5 events that you want to prepare for. So that's kind of going to guide your structure of training. So whether that it's a max overhead or a overhead for reps, for example, that would change the way you'd want to train things. So if you sort of confine to your events for an upcoming competition, then it's quite easy to train for. But
so I like that approach of what you're saying. So this is where I feel a lot of people go wrong, is they just kind of blindly look at, like, generically improving a lot of things and have things that they keep in because they think they're supposed to keep it in. Whereas, like, the logic that you look at, you're like, right, what have we got? What are you training for specifically? What are your goals? And then working kind of backwards from that.
Yeah.
It's like, right, we're here. This is where you want to be. And then logically using that to dictate the route and the direction.
Yeah. Well, obviously, like, if we were all professional athletes and didn't have anything else to do, and we could train for 4 hours every day, then great. Yeah, you could keep other stuff in, but most people don't have like unlimited amount of time, and if someone comes and says, right, my goal is this competition, then that's where your focus is gonna be. Or if they come in and say, I want to get my deadlift up, then you can kind of program things around that, yeah, and keep it.
So that's what I'm particularly impressed with Becky, and I think if we just show a little bit of a taster of the stuff that you've been doing with her, I think that the whole principle with Becky is the fact that she's a rugby player. She plays for Leicester Tigers. Strongwoman's like maybe just a side thing or an equal thing. I'm not entirely sure, but she's very successful in rugby, and she's doing obviously really well with the Strongwoman. So, but I think the principles that kind of are transferable to other busy women who want to get into training is the fact that she's got to fit her rugby training in, she's got to fit her rugby recovery in, she's got to fit. I'm sure she does like strength and conditioning work for a rugby. I'm sure she does stuff like where she's getting involved in the classes that she teaches. So basically, you've got to be as concise as possible and focus on the big rocks that are going to make the biggest difference. So what I found really, really impressive when I've had a look at Becky's stuff or Becky's program is the fact that she's achieved these amazing results in terms of progression, but there's 3 sessions a week. A lot of people would say only 3 sessions a week. And let's see what she started off at the prep. So she got 5 exercises in exercise 1, 4 exercise 3, workout 3. So essentially she's got 13 kind of at the prep for England, where she's absolutely smashed it and drastically improved across the board. She's actually got 13 protocols, essentially 13 progressive protocols per training week, which you may have some people that do that amount of exercises in the session, yeah. But you can probably think of examples with Becky where she's only had 4 or 5 exercises to do, and she's probably felt rushed even doing that at times, like because she wants to do everything so well. So yeah, well, talk to us a little bit about that. So why 3 sessions a week?
So everyone says how many times they want to train a week when they start, and sort of obviously keep to that because that's what the time people have. So Becky plays, I think she rugby trains or plays. I don't really understand rugby, but I think she trains twice a week.
Right.
And then obviously works. So 3 was the amount of sessions she wanted to fit in. So since Becky started with me, as we said before, it's been like comp after comp basically. So she's done England's, Brits, Arnold's, and now she's doing OSG. So they've basically all been little comp preps, which she's done really well with. Like they've all been quite specific. So yeah, the 3 sessions has worked brilliantly for her. The recovery's been great. Like she manages a recovery between rugby training and Strongwoman. Like obviously she gets fatigued like anyone and gets
So what I love about these is the fact that you've called them events day, deadlift focus day, overhead focus day, and you look at them and really the whole body.
Yeah.
The whole body, but within each one you might have, like, say, the deadlift thing where call it deadlift focus day, where the deadlift protocol might be the thing that's the thing to focus, and then the other kind of exercises are kind of working at different intensities. So could you tell us a little bit about that? So how like people might look at this and think, how's she training like full body 3 times a week? How does she recover? Like what's your kind of view and experience about doing that? Yeah,
so obviously you wouldn't train full body heavy 3 times a week, but like I think here, so on where it says deadlift focus, that's just like that's where she'll do a heavier deadlift work. There she's got low block pulls because it was when she was just getting used to the suit ready for England's, and then a heavier deadlift, suited deadlift there, and then a moving event. She'd have a monster dumbbell in there because obviously that's.
So, by the way, I'm really, really impressed with blown away with the communication between you and the athlete, and that obviously makes that, like, if we're looking at this and delving into why has Becky got such great results or whatever so far, this is a thing that's clear to me just looking at this without looking at the kind of intricacies of what's been said, like actually just seeing that there's a clear connection between coach and athlete in terms of communication. Like sometimes she's putting question marks in there, and then you're going into more detail next time that comes next week. So let's have a look at the deadlift, for instance. So let's look at this. So a few weeks out from England, when she's learning how to use a suit. So this is a great example of because you don't see her that much in person, but how you can actually. Was a thing when I first got into coaching people online that I had to get my head around, was like how you can make somebody technically better without like being there in person to adjust them and stuff. Whereas actually you can't, and it's so much better than actually most of the time. It's actually so much better than having people in person because you just have to communicate in a different way. So what you said here, tighter doesn't necessarily mean better. We'll still want to make you be able to get into a nice start position, regenerate plenty of power, blah 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 blah. Be careful cranking it up too much. Glad moves okay. Feeling better in the suit. We'll try no shoes next week. Blah blah blah, and then see what you said. Yeah, brilliant, absolutely brilliant. So yeah, and I just love the communication here. Like all the way through. It's just brilliant because as soon as there's kind of any kind of like, what have you done? Like, say if Becky turns around and says, like, oh, that's a bit too difficult. I've been missing reps on that. Like, what does that prompt you to do to the following session?
On a deadlift or
anything. If you see that in the feedback, what does that prompt you to do? Do you ever turn around and say, oh, you need to push harder or push through? Or...
No. Like obviously it depends. Like I said before, the dumbbell, there was plenty of missed reps. It was like a new skill, and Becky's really good at putting videos on, which is obviously helpful because sometimes little technical intricacies, like we changed her elbow position with the dumbbell, and that made a massive difference. So little things like that, and then she goes away and does it. But I think with something like that, and that you're acquiring a new skill with, so like
brilliant, but that she's putting all this data.
Yeah, loads of videos is great. It's not necessarily a massive issue if she's missing reps. Like obviously, with something like deadlift, if it was just too hard, then yeah, that's a programming issue, isn't it? That looks really different to a dumbbell now. We've gone back a bit, but yeah, you wouldn't want to be like RPE 11 missing loads of deadlifts every week, would you? So that would obviously need reining back in, but it's not been a problem. But yeah, with the overhead, it's just been skill acquisition, so it's not a massive. It's usually something that I can look at technically if she's missed dumbbell reps. Yeah,
so little pointers on that for kind of busy women in general. Like, if it could do you think people could achieve results training 2 times a week for a phase? Because you see a lot of people that kind of feel that, oh, I can only put a certain amount of time in, 45 minutes a couple of times a week, so it's not worth it, and then they don't do it, and then they don't follow the thing that they enjoy. But do you think would you be confident you could get results with a willing client if they could only do 40-minute sessions 3 times a week, 2 or 3 times a week?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. It's it's plenty, and it's.
And you've explained briefly the thing of like undulating the intensities and just basically like say. So give us an example, right? So if say Becky gets an event in a comp and she's training 3 times a week, and you think she needs to train this 3 times a week. Mm-hmm. Like what would you do? Say, for instance, I don't know, say she's got to get to 875 log or something for her next comp, mm-hmm. Like, and you've got, say, 6 weeks to prep for that. How would you train log 3? How could you train log 3 times a week? Or how have you done in the past to get to your 8 kilo PB?
I think she was, to be fair, in the run up to Brits, because she had a heavy log at Brits.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'd do like a light skill day that's not going to take any recovering from. So super light.
What kind of weights and what kind of percentages, whatever, roughly?
So like 50 to 60%, like super light.
What kind of sets and reps?
I quite like doing maybe like a 8 threes or a 10 2s, just because then it's you're not getting tired from it, and obviously you wouldn't have massive rest periods, but it's low intensity. Because like if you did, even though it was light, if you did sets of like 7 or 8, you'd be getting a bit gassed, and you probably wouldn't be focusing on your technique. You'd just be focusing on trying to breathe. So I quite like keeping it so that would feel really easy, but then you could focus a lot on your technique.
So in terms of energy systems, you're not getting any neural fatigue because the weight's low, but you're not getting any kind of muscular DOMs or anything like that because you're keeping the reps and the time of attention low, but you're still keeping the volume. What I like about that, you're keeping the volume quite moderate. So you're getting reps in. Yeah. But what I like about the, say, 8 threes or 10 2s is that you're getting, if you're videoing your sets, you're getting 8 to 10 times to reflect on and try something for the next thing. Mm-hmm. What about the next session?
So then you could, so like with log, I think it's really valuable doing heavier log cleans, not massive loads of volume. So maybe like 3 threes or 4 2s or something like that, but heavy, so that it's got to be right. So if it's like
would you do like heavy log and then heavy log cleans after as like the same session, or what?
Yeah, you could do. But yeah, your log cleans, especially if log's like a fairly new skill, then I think it can often go wrong in the clean. And obviously you want to land the clean nice to press. So I think it can be really helpful doing heavy log cleans session. And then it can be helpful to do a bit of log from the chest can be helpful with rack positioning. It depends on where the client's downfall is, but sometimes doing some from the chest can help you find a nice rack position, because you can play with it a little bit. So yeah, dependent, but yeah, you could easily get a light session, a heavier session, some cleans, and then like a volume session. I think most people would find that all right to recover from.
Yeah, brilliant. And then you can just obviously scale it appropriately depending on how they recover. And that's the value of like having, say, a coach, isn't it? Like for even like you being coached by me, like if you write some feedback in, oh, this feels tough this week, I feel like I'm on the edge of snapping, then we just peel it back. Or if we've been progressing for, I don't know, 3 to 6 weeks on a variation, we might just put a new variation in. But the key is it's the communication thing, isn't it? Mm-hmm. So that's what we need to stress to people, whoever they're working with. If you're working with us, if you're working with another coach, like communicate, like before things like, because you can often intervene proactively before any problems occur, either physiologically where you get injured, or psychologically where things just get tough and you start kind of getting session anxiety or whatever. Going to do your, like, just communicating with your coach can make a massive difference. So in terms of technique, say for instance, like we had a scenario here. Obviously, I think Becky had a bit longer in between her shows, but somebody's asked, like, if you have, what would you focus on and prioritise in terms of technique, strength, and recovery if you only had 2.5 weeks to peak in between comps? So you see this quite a bit. I see this with like people that I coach. You get opportunities. It seems to be like as you're doing more comps, more like qualifying route comps and national comps and stuff, like you get these like kind of opportunities that you didn't foresee. Like what would you prioritise if you were, like you were thinking of one recently when you were like, about 3 or 4 weeks, like what would you prioritise?
Well, we did have it with Becky because she did the OSG online qualifier during the Brits prep, which was obviously a little bit easier because it was only 2 events, wasn't it, or 3?
3 events.
Yeah. So it wasn't like a full 5 event comp, but still prepping for that. So it would depend a little bit. Obviously, if you're fairly new and it's a competition with events that you have never done before and you don't know how to do them, I would definitely focus on skill acquisition, which wouldn't need to, like we were saying, it wouldn't need to be heavy. You could do some really nice loads and loads of light skill acquisition. Say it with log and you've never pressed a log before, you could do like you're saying, loads and loads of light log, that's not going to be hard to recover from, but you can get so much better at a skill in 2.5 weeks. Like it's long enough to learn something new like that. It's not, you're not going to get that much stronger in 2.5 weeks.
How many times do you do these sessions, these skill acquisition sessions, and you walk into the session and you feel like, oh, my back's a bit stiff, my knees a bit sore, my foot's a bit sore today, and then you do this kind of light kind of session that you described before, and you finish and you're feeling great, and you're almost like do you ever do it where you feel like you do your 10 doubles and you feel like, I want to add a little bit of weight really, and you almost have to stay disciplined to, like, you feel better from these sessions very often, don't you?
Definitely. And in terms of a competition, that you're going to make fast gains, like getting better at a skill if you're not good at it. If you're fairly new, if you're fairly experienced and you're already good at all your events, then I would say, like, obviously training them and prioritizing your recovery if you've got 2.5 weeks, so you don't want to go on a massive.
So keeping it simple, technique, you can make significant progress using the kind of protocols that you mentioned on the light day. Like, you could do that really, really frequently. Strength, you're not going to make any significant progress in 2.5 weeks in terms of like neural response, nervous system activation, whatever. And you're not going to build any bigger muscles or significantly. Recovery, that's a big thing. What you can do is fatigue masks fitness. So if you get to a comp and you're absolutely smoked, then obviously you're not going to you're not going to display all the strength that you build up in these other phases. So a key is to be able to deload or rest appropriately. So on your comp day, you're at a 9 out of 10 plus at least. Ideally shooting towards a 10 out of 10 in terms of recovery. So where the danger comes is in if you're trying to force your strength in these last couple of weeks, or specifically the last 7 to 10 days really. So that'd be a thing that I'd be focusing on. I would be doing the general protocols that Mollie says, but also a thing that I always speak about is, and I like to reiterate, is people taking ownership and actually knowing yourself. Like, Mollie knows what she can do that might be slightly different. Mollie could do a 90% yoke 3 times a week. Most people would struggle with that. But there's certain exercise that other people will be able to recover better from than you can. So it's about knowing yourself and thinking, right, well, what is that likelihood going to take me over that red line? And it's just making that assessment of risk versus reward. And again, this is another thing. If you're working by yourself, this is another thing that you can really value by working with a coach. And coaching isn't just about programs and sets and reps. It's actually sometimes like just discussing somebody with a level head. Like the amount of times that I asked Mollie what she thinks about stuff that, I probably know more about it than her, maybe more experience in certain lifts or whatever. But sometimes it's so valuable just to ask somebody that you trust and that has a good level of understanding and is experienced in their own right. Like what? So definitely work with a coach if you're not already doing that. So Mollie, in a nutshell, how does your coaching style philosophy compare to, like, say, me and Joe and Tim, for instance? Like, is it anything really different, would you say? What things do you?
I don't really know Joe and Tim's that much, but obviously I'm coached by you. I wouldn't say that much. I think it really varies client to client. Obviously, like, we've focused quite a lot on Becky today, but things that have worked for Becky wouldn't work for everybody. And I think it's about being flexible and sort of identifying what each person needs. And hopefully I'm okay at it, but I think it's identifying that. And
but this is the point of the video, right? It's objective, right? She's achieved massive things this year. And don't get me wrong, like, I'm not like, you've only trained her for a short period of time. She's really strong out of her own right. Her old coach that she worked with, Dean, has got her incredibly strong, incredibly fit. It's just brilliant. whatever she'd done up to the point where you had a relationship with her, like it has been fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
So yours is just like the kind of icing on the cake, really. But what I'm saying is that objectively, she's significantly improved and achieved things that.
Yeah, so I think like having the communication, like we were saying before, is like a big, I guess, overriding philosophy. I think it's important to have that relationship and be able to talk to people about their goals, their recovery, like how they're feeling about everything, and be able to be flexible with the program for each person, because as I say, it's different for everyone.
And that's it. And that, like, I see you at home working and planning out and spending so much time on like writing a new block for a client and stuff, because realistically with what you do, your style and philosophy is a bit of a kind of loaded question, really, because it's like it almost indicates that there's just a certain way of doing things, whereas I know for you, like, it's completely client centered. Like, I look at, obviously I know some of the clients that you're working with from different goals, like people recovering from injuries, Steph with their hip replacement and stuff. Like, it's just remarkable. Like, you cannot give like a one size fits all thing.
Everyone's managing something, aren't they? And
but the key is like the clients have to communicate, like, and that's what's so good about you and Becky. Like, even if we just had a scroll through and didn't read any of the intricacies, just like seeing all the green ticks, she's adhering to what you laid out together. She's invested in it because she's putting a little bit of feedback on each thing. She's uploading a video, so you can just make sure that things are good and feeling good in terms of feedback. So yeah, absolutely brilliant. So let's talk about injuries. So coming back from injury or managing injuries personally, what's your experience with this recently?
Recently hurt my back prepping for England. So so like we were saying with the pathway before, unfortunately I qualified for England but got injured like 10 days out. So I've been managing that. It was quite a bad injury. I was like not really able to do anything for a couple of weeks. So I've had like treatment and stuff, and then managing it, coming back, like finding stuff in the gym that I can do. Did like, pressing from the box and pressing from the rack and stuff like that, and then managed to prep for this recent comp that we did, this European
comp.
So
tell us about the mindset thing, right? Because it was like bit like beyond being a coach. Like from a coach, I could look at it rationally and be like, right, well, what can we do? What can we do? How can we kind of recalibrate? Yeah, you're missing England. What can we do to get back on track? But from I'll be honest, like a fan's perspective, like I'm a massive fan of like a lot of you girls and guys and stuff, and I was gutted, absolutely gutted and heartbroken, because like you'd like steered away from injuries for a couple of years and had like a real good. You got so struck. You'd taken like a long off season. You chose not to do OSG because you wanted to go and get stronger, blah blah blah. And like the progress that you'd made, like you're like whatever 190 plus on the deadlift. You'd done 90 kilo axle, 8 kilo log, 50 plus dumbbell, like 100 kilo farmers. It's just like ridiculous, the progress that you've made. And it was like we were just gonna, like, you were feeling really good for England. So the it was a bit dark after that for a bit, wasn't it? Really, but like mentally, I mean, as well as physically. But a thing that you've done so well is when the chips were down, just keep going rationally, putting one foot in front of the other, cliche, but just doing that day to day, like, and then you reset your goal and you're like, right, well, I'm not going to be able to do that. I'm going to miss out on the pathway this year, but what can I do instead? So then you set obviously the goal of doing the European Championships at the Arnold Europe, and then prep for that and went and smashed it, and it was just absolutely brilliant. So the message is, there's like, just recalibrate and just think about what you can affect, and yeah. So What about clients who have injuries to manage? Like, should they stop training? Like, how? Like, say for instance, you like say talk about Becky or whatever. Like, what kind of inevitably, like I imagine, like she's got knocks playing rugby, she's got knocks in training. Because by the way, when you're training people like this who are training for performance in terms of like they'll like if she's a good rugby player, she'd run into a brick wall if she think it's going to be beneficial. Like she's not going to be shy of doing things. So taking that approach and trying to push these 1% every week, it's inevitable that you're going to get these kind of injuries and stuff. So how have you responded as a coach when she's say left in a feedback that she's got stuff to?
Yeah, she had a bit of like a heel, injured a heel playing rugby. I can't remember how now, but yeah, she had this heel injury, and that was affecting her deadlift. I think she was struggling to put force through the floor when she was deadlifting. So she sort of went to deadlifting back in a kind of padded running shoes, which obviously we know isn't optimal for deadlifting, but it was the only way she was going to deadlift without being in absolute agony and making it worse. So that's where we went. I mean, obviously she probably would have healed maybe quicker if she'd have laid off deadlifting, but no, she, like Becky made that decision, she's not going to do that in the middle of comp season. She's got this opportunity, she wants to take them, she didn't feel the injury was that bad, so she's just managed it and sort of carried on with a program. And it was mainly the deadlift that it affected, so it was just sort of still progressing everything else and keeping the deadlift at a level where she could still train it but maybe not pushing it as much in order to let that heel recover.
So the main answer to this question that I use is, first of all, scale the weight back and see if there's a pain-free load that you can work at. And very often there is, and that can fix the issue. Like you can kind of work around whatever the issue is and can find a weight and then build back up and progressively overload and be patient. If you can't find a pain-free weight on a variation, thing that I always look to do with people and myself, it'd be, can you find a range of motion that you can work with on that specific exercise that you want to do that's pain-free? Like, so say for instance you're hurting at the bottom of a squat, if you can go an inch above it, does it take the pain away? Could you do a box squat? If you can do a box squat, usually it's a really good way of like maintaining the kind of strength on the specific exercise that you want to do whilst you recover. But like the underlying thing here, we're only helping you lay out the training pathway, whereas actually this is something with injuries that you should be going to see a professional and a physio, for example. So, last question, Mo. Ideal client, 3 main principles. Like I see you when you're writing a block of training, or I see you like say looking at people's videos and stuff, and I can just see you like a lot of the time you're just buzzing. And you look like you're really getting a lot from it. And what makes you tick when you look at say your system and you're looking at the feedback and stuff? What makes you like buzz? Like what do you enjoy the most?
I think firstly, like giving that feedback, like we were saying before, it's really helpful to have videos. Some people don't find it a bit cringe video and stuff, like if it's a busy gym or whatever, but it is really helpful. And videos and like a bit of writing. So a client that's willing to give some feedback, because I think obviously you can progressively overload, but it's hard to help someone if you've not got that feedback, and videos are really helpful. So giving feedback, communicating, I think like we've already covered, it's important to say like, I'm finding this really hard, or these sessions are taking me 3 hours and I need you to be home. Like if you say that, then there's so much we can change before it becomes like, I didn't train today because it looked too long. So I think
because that linear thing like doesn't really work in practice for most people.
No,
but you can certainly go from there to there with a squiggle, and you can navigate that squiggle if you communicate with your coach.
Yeah, exactly. And someone who's like willing to maybe change things up a little bit. Someone who's willing to do different things and be open to suggestion, I guess.
Yeah. So is it just people like Becky that you want to train, like say people who are looking to compete in like elite level comps?
No, not at all. I really enjoy coaching anyone who's got those qualities. It doesn't matter if they're competing or they're not even doing strong. Like I coach a few powerlifters, and like I think I like that as well. And it doesn't really matter. It's just if you.
The thing that I admire about your coaching style and coaching philosophy is like when I see you coaching, is that in person I see it, and it's just like magic, because you seem like you seem from the outset like quite reserved, and you're not being loud, and you communicate so powerfully, but without kind of shouting or being stern, or I rarely even, it might sound bad to some people, I rarely even hear you shouting like "go on" or "well done" or encouragement. It's more like, so when you do that, it's so powerful and meaningful. But yeah, that's the thing that I'm so impressed with your coaching, is how you can get the results that those people that I see in the gym, they've got a session with, well, like I can clock like last time they were in, and I'm just baffled by how much they've improved, like technically and on the, like, it's just absolutely amazing. And I suppose this is an important thing that I'm trying to put across with the coaching, is the fact is that we know loads and loads of really, really good coaches, great coaches, but sometimes it's not about being good or better than one another. It's just about being a good match for the client, isn't it?
Yeah.
And like and this is like Becky's a great example of this. Like Becky inquired with me for the training, and I just thought you'd be a really good fit, and I thought you'd be able to relate to her even more than what I could. Yeah, and I suppose a massive compliment to you as a coach, even though I'm really confident in my own abilities, and again, objectively look at the results that I get with clients and stuff consistently, but I'm not confident that I could have been a better help to Becky than what you have done. So well done. So check out the link in the description to this, and we'll put where is it at the top? So we'll put the 6-week trial block link in description if you would like to know more about Mollie's coaching, or contact Mollie directly on Instagram at MollLift. So at MollLifts. Boom.